In the darkest hours of the Second World War, while cities slept and oceans disappeared under clouds and fog, the United States and its allies were already fighting a war the enemy could not see. Long before missiles, satellites, or digital screens, American engineers, scientists, and factory workers helped unleash a weapon that did not explode, did not burn, and did not make a sound, yet it changed the outcome of the war. It was a weapon made of invisible waves, born in laboratories and perfected on an industrial scale that only the United States could achieve. To those who faced it, radar did not feel like science. It felt like an unfair advantage. It felt like magic. Before radar, war followed ancient rules. Armies and air forces depended on human senses that had changed little for centuries. Soldiers watched the skies with binoculars, strained their ears for the distant hum of engines, and relied on searchlights to pierce the night. Darkness, fog, and bad weather offered protection. Surprise was everything. An air raid that arrived unseen could devastate a city before defenses even reacted. For generations, night had been a shield. Radar shattered that illusion completely. Radar worked on a principle that was simple in theory and revolutionary in practice. Radio waves were sent out into the air, spreading invisibly across vast distances. When these waves struck an object, an aircraft, a ship, even a submarine mast, they reflected back. From these reflections, operators could determine distance, direction, altitude, and movement. To scientists, this was physics. To pilots and sailors encountering it for the first time, it was something deeply unsettling. The enemy could now see without eyes, detect without sound, and strike without warning. There was no way to hide from something you could not perceive. Britain laid the groundwork for radar's military use with its chain home system, a network of coastal radar stations that played a decisive role during the Battle of Britain. But it was American industrial power that transformed radar from a fragile scientific experiment into a dominant force of war. Once the United States entered the conflict, radar development accelerated at a staggering pace. American factories mass-produced radar sets, improved their reliability, reduced their size, and deployed them across continents and oceans. What had once been limited installations became standard equipment on ships, aircraft, and ground defenses. The invisible battlefield expanded everywhere American forces went. To German and Japanese pilots, this new reality was terrifying. They believed they were approaching under perfect cover, flying at night, hidden by clouds, crossing vast oceans or open countryside. And yet, American fighters were already climbing to meet them. Anti-aircraft fire was waiting with unnatural precision. Convoys changed course before submarines could strike. Bombers were intercepted far from their targets. Many enemy crews could not understand how they had been detected. Radar stations were silent. There were no lights, no visible beams, no clues. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed the Americans had discovered new forms of energy. Others suspected secret rays or supernatural tracking devices. Fear filled the gap left by ignorance. As the war progressed, radar evolved beyond defense. Airborne radar systems allowed American and Allied bombers to navigate and strike targets through cloud cover and darkness. Radar-guided night fighters hunted enemy aircraft in skies where vision was useless. Naval radar turned the ocean into a transparent battlefield, exposing ships and submarines that once relied on weather and night for survival. The sea no longer concealed movement. The sky no longer protected bombers. Everywhere radar reached, the old rules collapsed. Germany attempted to respond with its own systems, such as Freya, Würzburg, and Liechtenstein radar, creating a silent technological arms race fought entirely with invisible waves. Countermeasures, jamming, and deception followed, but the advantage increasingly belonged to the side that could innovate faster and produce more. In that contest, American industry proved decisive. Radar sets rolled off assembly lines by the thousands. Crews were trained, systems improved, and integration perfected. The war of machines became a war of information, and the side that saw first almost always won. What made radar so powerful was not just its technical capability, but its psychological impact. Soldiers had always understood bullets, bombs, and fire. They could see danger coming. radar offered no such comfort. It removed uncertainty for one side while creating total uncertainty for the other. Enemy forces were no longer fighting just pilots and ships. They were fighting an unseen intelligence that watched continuously, silently, and without rest. By the end of World War II, radar had permanently changed warfare. It proved that victory was no longer decided only by courage or numbers, but by technology, coordination, and industrial strength. The invisible had become decisive. Darkness had lost its power. The future of war had arrived quietly, carried on radio waves. Today, radar is everywhere. It guides airplanes safely to land, tracks storms across continents, and helps ships navigate crowded seas. Its presence feels ordinary. But in the 1940s, it was revolutionary. It represented a moment when human perception was extended by machines, when science and industry combined to give one side an overwhelming advantage. That is why, to those who first faced it in the skies and seas of World War II, radar did not feel like technology. It felt like magic, and it was a magic forged by American innovation, scale, and determination.